We call our Tuesday, September 12th, 2023 City Council agenda meeting to order, business meeting to order. We have Pledge of Allegiance and invocation by Madam Vice Chair Hill.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Here's the agenda, Madam Chair.
Right, thank you so much. Tonight, we have a very healthy agenda. We do have a special presentation today. We have a form-based code appeal hearing for form-based code 2315, 418 Manufacturers Road. And how this will work is we will have a presentation by staff. If you can come on up. We have a presentation by staff. It's the applicant present. The applicant
is present.
All right, so we have the applicant present. Is there opposition present? All right.
There is opposition.
Yeah, all right, okay. So I see applicant and opposition. So again, we had a presentation, and then we'll have 7 minutes for the applicant to make their presentation, 9 minutes for the opposition to make their statements. And then we'll have, if the applicant needs or wants, a 2-minute rebuttal from the applicant. So with that in mind, Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for laying out the process for this. I do know there's at least 2 distinct groups here in opposition, and I would ask that each group at least be allowed to speak, and I understand if they have to stay within the confines of the 9 minutes, but I would request that at least each group got to speak and be heard.
All right, so I hope everyone heard that Councilman Henderson has requested that each group speak. So as you get up to speak, just be reminded, you'll have a timer here to say 9 minutes. So just be reminded as you're speaking that it's a total 9 minutes, it's not 18 minutes. So it's a total 9 minutes for both groups, anyone else in opposition. So just be sure to be mindful of the time and be mindful of each other. All
Thank
right.
you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you, Councilman Henderson. All right, Dallas, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Council. The top letter is the letter about the appeal and a basic report on what happened. On June 8th, 2023, at 2 p.m., the Form-Based Code Committee was called to order in the Development Resource Center, Room 1A. Case number FBC-2315, 418 Manufacturers Road was heard. There were 2 modifications requested. The first request was for an increase height from 6 stories to 7. That request was approved. The second request was decreased setback from the Tennessee River from 100 feet to 80 feet. That request was denied. The property is zoned R-RF-6. The R-FR zone allows for multi-unit living, 5+ units. Building height allows 6 stories, 85 feet max. While the additional story was approved by the committee, the elevation shows the building at 84 feet and 6 inches. Attached includes the form-based meeting, a sign-in sheet, the motion form, the presentation to the form-based committee, major modification includes elevations, form-based code modification applications, picture of the site survey, the neighborhood meeting. I had it listed as the meeting that was in our department, but we can get that if you need it. Opposition letter, major modification permit, and notice of hearing picture. That's the sign that we post. There's the form-based code committee sign-in sheet, those that were present at the hearing for the modification. Notice that was posted of the hearing. There's the sign that was posted on the site. There's information from the form-based code about the ability to appeal the form-based code committee's action. There are the requests for the modifications. There's some information from the form-based code that shows the allowance of the six stories in the R-RF-6. Here's descriptions of story height, setback and parking references. Members of the Forward-Based Code Committee, this is the opposition letter that was submitted to the Form-Based Code Committee before the hearing. There's the Form-Based Code Committee motion showing one approved, one denied. There's a picture of the site, elevations, picture of the aerial view, what the site would look at with these buildings on it. It's the picture of the bare site. Elevations. The modification that was granted. That's the modification permit that we issue. So I heard this is the application for the site plan showing the property along the river. And then the context map from the form-based code. Book. That's all I have. Melissa Mortimer's here, if that was at the meeting, if you have any questions about what took place at the meeting.
All right. Did Melissa have a statement with the presentation?
Do you have anything to say?
Oh, I'm temporarily serving as the form-based code staff.
Okay.
So I put together this presentation and was at the meeting for the form-based code committee. Dallas kind of went over everything. It's allowed in form-based code for the major modifications to be approved for one story by the form-based code committee. And that is what was reviewed and approved at the committee.
Okay, and could you tell us about the height requirement?
So the height requirement, it doesn't say it on that page, but it's actually an and. So you could have, what is it, six stories? Six stories and 85 feet in height. So while they requested a seventh story, they're still under that 85 feet of the overall height. So even if they weren't granted that story, they could still go up to what they have proposed on their plans.
Okay, and we do have two questions. Councilman Smith, followed by Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think my question was just answered. The way this is written, it says an increase in height from 6 stories to 7, but technically, it may not actually be an increase in height. It's just an increase in stories.
Number of stories, yes, sir.
That is correct. Okay, just making sure I understood that. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you, Councilman Smith. Councilman Henderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dallas, Melissa, is it fairly common practice when an applicant comes requesting one additional story for that to be granted by the form-based code?
It is. I think that's actually was discussed in this specific meeting that day, because I think a site close to it had also been granted a story.
Thank you.
City Councilman Henderson?
Yeah.
All right, we have two more questions. Hold on, Councilwoman Burrs, followed by Madam Vice Chair Hill.
Thank you. So I'm interested in the meeting itself. Was that meeting held in proper form?
Yes, we had the application submitted by the deadline. The sign notification was posted 2 weeks prior. We had a neighborhood meeting, or the applicant had a neighborhood meeting as required. We sent out public notice to all the neighbors using our standard address scooper that we have in the office, and listed in the newspaper a week prior.
Was there anything that happened in that meeting that was against the policy and procedure that ultimately was approved?
No, not that I know
Okay,
of.
thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilwoman Burrs. Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just want to put a finer point on the two modifications that were requested. So to be certain that we all understand. So there was one modification requested to add the 7th story, but not to go above the 85 feet. And that was approved. The other request was a request to decrease the river setback from 100 feet to 80 feet, and that was denied.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Council, any additional questions for Dallas or Melissa? All right, thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, if the applicant or applicant representative is present, if y'all could put 7 minutes on the clock, you have 7 minutes. Feel free to not take all that time, but you have 7 minutes on the clock.
Well, thank you. My name is Joseph Wingfield, and let's see if we could get our presentation up here. Do I need to do anything for that?
Don't do it.
All right, thank you. My name is Joseph Wingfield.
Sure. Presentation, yes, we can. Start over, yeah. All right. All
All right, I think we're ready.
right.
My name is Joseph Wingfield, and I consider it a privilege to be a Chattanoogan. I was born and raised here, as my wife was. We're raising 5 boys, and we are grateful to be in Chattanooga. We think it's one of the best places you could raise a family of 5 boys. Both our parents are from Chattanooga, and all 4 of our grandparents were Chattanoogans also. We run and operate a small family business that my grandfather started in 1937, Wingfield Scale Company, small business, 48 employees, and we're enjoying our 86th year here in Chattanooga. In 2008, we had the opportunity to buy a piece of property. My family did, and we've enjoyed that piece of property very much. We think it's an important piece of property, a significant piece of property, and we still think that way. We have regular offers on that property over the last 15 years plus, and because of the significance to us, we also know that we're not developers, and the significance of this property, we wanted to get the design and the plan right, and we took our time to do that. Speaking of the developer, we got to know the Sins, Mark and Chris Sin in particular, and we met in 2011. Chris was not married, didn't have any kids at that time. He has a paltry 3 sons with a 4th on the way. But I've seen their developments in Hilton Head, South Carolina, in Charleston, South Carolina, in Augusta, Georgia, in Nashville, Tennessee, and most importantly in Chattanooga, Tennessee, with One Riverside, which they really did a good job with. So we felt like we found the right partner in the Sins, and we're excited about our design. A couple reasons we're excited about our designs. We had 3 meetings with our land development office with Sarah Robbins and Karen Hunt and implemented a lot of their feedback. We held the neighborhood input meetings with One North Shore. We had our initial submittal was in May, as they mentioned, and then reviews and comments from Ms. Mortimer. We had that successful variance granted, and we're here today to kind of defend the variance that was permitted, and I'll introduce you to Jeremy Cawthorn, who's our local representation, who'll go through more of the nitty-gritty.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeremy Cawthorn. I'm an attorney at Patrick Beard, Shulman, and Jakeway. I'm representing the developer. And I think I want to pitch this for what is actually at issue for y'all today. And what is at issue is whether to approve the 7th story, which is approved as a routine, as a matter of routine. Adding the 7th story changes nothing about the dimensions of the building. The width remains the same, the depth remains the same, the height remains the same, and the density will remain the same. So the units will be consistent, the height will be consistent, the width, depth, etc. The dimensions will not change. The reason that the request for, by the way, we're not we have not appealed the denial of the setback from the river. We're able to work through that with the design, not asking for that to be revisited. The reason the 7th story is significant for the developer is that it will allow for the integration of a parking lot beneath the building and will eliminate the need for an external hardscape parking lot. As was discussed at the beginning of the report, the form-based code allows for the 7th story to be granted. To orient everyone, the project here is at the bottom left-hand screen. It's circled in the red, which is the property that's available for development under this proposed project. The company that has instituted the appeal is currently under construction immediately above this project. It is an apartment complex. That was what was referred to as receiving the additional story previously. For some reason, they have objected to the same treatment for my clients. You'll see that one North Shore is there to the right. And I'll go through this so you can see. It is our read of the form-based code that there needs to be continuity in development. That's one of the things that's been really important. They've identified unique characteristics of neighborhoods, and we're supposed to remain consistent with the development in those areas. This is defined as a mid to high level intensity or density project where multifamily units predominate. There's also a desire in form-based codes for these kinds of projects to be integrated into the existing community. You'll see here that we have a proposed walking trail, which is kind of a multi-use trail. There's tentative discussions about extending the river walk there. You'll see that dotted line, there's a proposed walking trail. This project is in compliance with every aspect of the default requirements of the form-based code, every single one of them. What you'll see here is, and I've alluded to this previously, at the top, you'll see that there are 5 residential stories on the 7-story, 5 stories residential. If you go to the bottom, in the 6-story version, there's 5 stories of residential. You'll notice that the difference between the 2 slides is the amount of parking that is beneath the building. You'll also notice that we have an 83 feet building height for both the 6-story and the 7-story versions, so the height will remain the same. This is another indication with the blue arrows indicating where the extra parking or the deleted parking will be. I think this is the pivotal slide so y'all can see what we're talking about. On the left-hand side, this is the project that we are asking to move forward tonight. It's the 7 stories here, and you'll see the green space is preserved along the right side of the road. If you look to the right slide, this is the 6-story with surface parking. You'll see to the top left, that's the Middle Street apartment complex that is currently under construction. There will be a potential surface parking there to the right behind the one North Shore. And it is our sincere hope that we can avoid the hardscape parking lot behind one North Shore and integrate it into the building. And I'll reserve my 2 minutes for rebuttal, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you so much. Councilwoman Burrs.
Just for clarification, the additional stories, if you will, are below ground.
There is, well, yes.
Yes is sufficient.
Yes.
Okay. So I believe your first statement was that it changes, the reason for it was to go below ground. The actual, the building itself above ground doesn't change at all.
There's 5 stories, residential
That's yes,
stories.
right?
The answer is yes.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, I'm
Councilman.
not sure, I would clarify
Councilman
that. I
Henderson.
think we would do, am I allowed to speak to that question?
I think I got my answer.
Well, I'm not sure it was exactly accurate, though. We would expect to do
I'm
several
sorry,
parking-
I'm sorry, he already responded. We have another councilman.
Okay, no
Councilman
problem.
Henderson?
This may be a question for Ms. Shepherd or Mr. Wingfield. One, the form-based code is relatively new form of zoning in this area. It was actually requested by Councilman Mitchell and I to move it from the kind of the city center over to the North Shore. But what was this particular piece of property zoned before form-based code rezoned it?
When the Winkfields bought this property, it was zoned C3, and the joke around the development community was C3 was the Wild Wild West. You could do whatever you wanted.
So how many stories were allowed when Mr. Wingfield bought this property?
I don't remember or know. It was at least 6 or 7. They probably could have gone higher as long as they met their setbacks. That's what I'm saying. It was the Wild Wild West. So there was probably a minimum height, you meet your setbacks, and you could go higher. Karen could probably answer that question.
In C3, do we know what the height how many stories? I don't know.
The C3 zone itself does not have a lot of standards, but there were about 13 conditions that we used for C3 cases, and they got amended a little bit for each case. So I would have to pull the ordinance with the rezoning conditions to be able to answer that, because Donna's right in the sense that there are not many standards for C3, but we used the same conditions multiple times to reinforce standards.
So he bought the property with C3, which
Probably had some sort of zoning
I'm
conditions.
assuming he could have done 7 stories in the C3.
The C3 zone probably did not, based on if you could meet setbacks, but we'd have to double check the zoning conditions to see if there was something related to height.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that it, Councilman Henderson?
Yeah.
That's it, all right. Councilman Ledford?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Quick question. Did I hear the density, number of units does not change?
That's correct. This is in the design phase. They can allocate the internal space as necessary. The units will not change. The number of units will not change.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you all so much for your presentation.
Thank you so much.
All right, so now we will have opposition, 9 minutes. Keep in mind, there are 2 groups that would like to speak, so just be mindful of each other, please. I'm sorry, Councilman Hester?
I was wondering, what was the capacity, parking capacity?
Oh, I'm sorry. Sir, I guess, what was the parking capacity? The parking capacity?
Right, on the
I'm sorry,
ground.
what's the parking capacity?
Parking capacity. I don't know the answer to that. If you'll give me 1 second, I can
Okay,
get it answered.
that's fine, thank you. All right. All right. All right. Got our 9 minutes. You ready?
I think he's trying to get an answer to the last question.
All right, right. Go ahead, you can go ahead, start.
Thank you.
right.
My name's Harry Cash. I'm a lawyer here in Chattanooga with Grant, Convalink, and Harrison. I represent Mill River Operating Company. Here with me is Liz Palmer down from Nashville. She's Director of Development for Mill River. I'll attempt to only take about half of the time, the opposition time, but I did want to point out what the code provides is that this council is required to look at a number of factors and making a decision whether to approve this or not. Those factors are found in the code at 38-696 4A. There actually are 8 of them, but 2 of them particularly provide or apply here. One of those is that the standard established in the code, the variance request does not, there's supposed to be a diversity of housing options. This development does not provide a diversity of housing options. It provides simply additional housing like what is already there. Secondly, Section G of 38-696 provides that development and conservation along the riverfront should be balanced by promoting development scale form that maintains public accessibility to the river and considers public-private benefits of scenic views along the river. It's pretty clear from what you all were provided by Mr. Rucker that this is not going to provide scenic views of the river. In fact, it's going to prohibit views of the river. This property is going to be blocking views of the river. These modifications requested are essentially variances. Tennessee state law tells us when variances should be approved. Tennessee Code annotated section 13.7.207.3 provides that variances should be allowed by reason of exceptional narrowness, shallowness, or shape of a specific piece of property at the time of the enactment of the zoning regulation, or by reason of exceptional topographic conditions or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions on the piece of property. There's no topographical problems with this property. It's not unnecessarily shallow or narrow that would require a variance or a modification. The modification requested simply would allow more parking. More parking, you can get more people in. I know the position is that there are 5 stories of apartments no matter what, but if you don't have sufficient parking underground to house those people, your market's not going to be nearly as good. I also want to address one thing that was brought up earlier.
Do you want me to clarify?
Please, okay. Yeah.
Thank you for having us here this evening. I just want to clarify, we are the developers of the project just to the north, and we did seek a variance. Under code, we were allowed to go 6 stories on one portion of our site, and we were allowed to go 4 stories on the other portion of the site. So we asked that the 4-story portion be granted to 5, and in return for that, we lowered the 6 to 5. I just wanted to be very clear that we did not get an additional floor of apartments on our site. Thank you.
One other thing I would point out, I think it's page 44 of the package that Mr. Rucker provided to you all, shows this schematic, and it looks to me like this is actually an 8-story building. You have 3 parking garages and then 5 residence stories on top of that. So rather than a request for a 7-story, I think it's an 8-story.
Right.
We're about halfway through.
All right, is there any additional opposition that would like to speak? If so, please come to the podium.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Helen Byrne Sharp. I'm representing the Downtown Owners Collective. That's a neighborhood association that is primarily in the downtown area on the south side of the river, but we also include Manufacturers Road and Fraser Avenue. And was asked to work with the residents of One North Shore and putting together some comments about this. And would the people here from One North Shore please raise their hands to show? Obviously, there is some interest in this. I think you all are probably aware that there's an enormous amount of concern about traffic. I think probably, not speaking for them, but I think the idea that these are apartments and it's residential, that's fine. That's going to be a better neighbor than the industrial uses or whatever. So this is not a no growth, we don't want apartments there, whatever. But the real concern is, and I think we're all familiar with that area, is the transportation system, the traffic today. And what we have learned in doing some research on this is that the city is supposed to require a traffic study for any residential development with 200 units or more. Well, that ball got dropped with Middle Street. And then Mr. Wingfield, back in 2017, where you see the right-hand tower, he got a land disturbing permit then, and that's normally when the traffic study is required, but apparently he wasn't asked to do a traffic study then. So based on open records and all, the last traffic study we can see that was done for Manufacturers Road was 2006. Lots of things have changed, lots of traffic, lots of stress on those intersections at Manufacturers Road and Cherokee, and even at the Market Street Bridge or whatever. So that's the big concern that they have. So I wanted to, I think I've passed this out. This is a copy of a memo summarizing this. Would ask that this be entered into the record of the meeting. And let me see if I can just quickly, as I said, what we're looking at with these two developments combined is almost 600 new units. And so the people who are there now are saying, wait a minute, the system seems stressed now. Who is looking out for us and who has got a plan for how we're going to address infrastructure? Is the growth keeping up with the infrastructure? And as you know, in a transportation impact analysis, what you do is you look primarily at intersections, turn lanes, traffic lights and all, and then determine if there's some things needed to mitigate the impact of the new development. Well, that hasn't been done yet. And so for those reasons, the request from our group is that the city sort of take the initiative here and agree to provide oversight, set the parameters, and coordinate with the two developers for a combined traffic study that would look at the impact of both developments with the developers sharing in the cost of the study. It seems right now it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for Middle Street, who somehow escaped the requirement, and you know, there was just, apparently they just fell through the cracks at the city, and I guess that the Wingfield folks haven't applied for a land disturbing permit, although they did in 2017 or whatever. So it seems to me like there ought to be one traffic study, and the city should coordinate it, establish the parameters, and afterwards maybe have a neighborhood meeting kind of reporting the findings. So the request of our group is the city do this, that they sort of oversee this traffic study that would include the impacts of both developments. And we also recommend that you continue this public hearing until, and set a date, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I don't know how long it takes to get a traffic study done by a transportation planning engineer, to allow for completion, because one of the things that it is the case that regarding the appeal, that the code says you must use the guidelines in section so-and-so to make a final decision on this, and it reads, one of the things that you need to have a finding about is the modification will not significantly impact adjacent property owners, the character of the area, traffic conditions, et cetera, et cetera. So it seemed to me like you would want to know what the traffic situation is before you approve this, an additional floor, although maybe, I know they're saying that it's not additional units, but it seems like that might be a way to go. Thank you for your time, appreciate it.
Thank you. If we wait just a second, I do have several council members lit up here. So let me see, Councilman Ledford. Oh, sorry, Madam Vice Chair Hill, I apologize.
Thank you very much. With regard to stories, feet, how tall is your building?
We're about, I can tell you,
All the way to the outside structures?
I'm gonna say 65. Let's see if I can see my eyes. Oh, I could. Yeah, I want to say 65 feet.
And that includes any kind of rooftop deck?
Yeah, we don't have a rooftop deck, if
Okay.
that makes sense. There's no outdoor
So
space there.
did you ask for a seventh story and were you denied?
We did not.
Okay, you did not ask for one?
No, we did not.
And are you currently building?
We are.
You are, okay. So your building is not complete. And did you all own the property ever that was along the river, in front of the river, in front of your property?
We did not.
You did not, okay. That's all for now, thank you.
All right, thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question's for the city attorney. Mr. Attorney, are we hearing an appeal case on the 6 versus 7 story, or are we making a decision on this project as a whole? Because I feel like that's what I'm hearing mostly.
Your appeal is based upon what the form-based code committee did in connection with this matter, and whether you think that action was appropriate or not. At that point in time, the form-based code committee merely granted one extra story and they denied the setback requirement on the riverfront. So I believe that's the issue as to what the Form-Based Code Committee did.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you, Councilman Ledford. Councilwoman Burrs?
Mr. Cash,
Yes, ma'am.
is it your position that this was, I believe you used the word, a BOZA action?
I'm sorry, a what?
A BOZA, Board of Zoning Appeals? That's the word I wrote down. You said.
Yeah, this is analogous to a variance request
All right.
before a Board of Zoning Appeals.
All right.
And you have specific guidelines that you're supposed to
Sure.
look at.
And so you're saying that anytime form-based code makes a decision, that it is analogous to a BOZA decision?
It is analogous.
So
what you
they
have
are
to look
held-
at is different as opposed to the Tennessee statute. You have to look
So
at.
they are held to the BOZA criteria?
It's analogous. It's not exactly the same because the criteria that you all have to look at is different than what the Board of Zoning Appeals looks at.
That's exactly my point. It is different. So you're not saying that they're limited to analogous, sort of, kind of, but so they're not held to the BOZA standards that you mentioned, correct?
Well, it is analogous. I'm not sure
Tell me
exactly
what analogous means to you.
It means similar. And I'm not sure what the BOZA regulations that you're referring to are.
I'm using yours. Was it a hardship? I'm using
Was it
exactly what
narrowness,
you said.
shallowness, that kind of thing? I think those things need to be considered, correct?
Well-
I do think they need to be.
All right. What I heard was that your position is it's analogous to the BOZA standards, and then you recited the BOZA standards.
I recited the statute that says what the Board of Zoning Appeals should look at. That's correct.
All right. And so what you're saying is that somehow that wasn't followed.
Well, what I'm saying is the criteria in the zone-based, code-based was not followed. And
Well, analogous to what BOZA would do.
correct. Just like BOZA has
All right.
guidelines that have to be followed, so does the form-based code.
Okay. And so you don't see them as two separate entities created by the state and then the council covered form-based code?
No, I don't. I see them as, I don't want to use the word analogous. That they are not exactly the same. But
Okay,
you
I was
do
just
have
trying to figure out the basis for your argument.
Well, my argument is that there is criteria that has to be followed. And that criteria says you should not block the views of the scenic views of the river, which this does. And all of this is in section 38, 696, 4A
I got
of the
it.
code basis.
I got it. All right, and then the last thing I had, is it also your position that each individual case is not, the outcome is not discretionary with the form-based code committee?
I think the committee has to follow the guidelines. There is always some discretion in interpretation of guidelines. I don't think there's a hard, fast line that you can never do this or never do that.
And the guidelines you're using are I'm just going by what you
No.
said, the BOZA analogous things and the fact that you can't block views.
Again, the guidelines I'm going by are in the code-based section 38, 696, 4A. There are A through J of those. And among those are the providing a diversity of housing options. That's got to be followed, and this does not comply with that. And consider the public-private benefits of scenic views along the river.
Okay, I think I understand. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, ma'am. I do have two items that I need to address. Ma'am, so it's my understanding, help me understand. Without them asking for a height increase, in other words, they're staying within their height requirement at roughly 85 feet, and with no increase in density, help me understand how this is negatively impacting your development.
I'm not sure I'd say it's I mean, it's development, and we are obviously developers, so we fully support and appreciate the challenges that developers face. But we also appreciate that when we seek a variance, typically there is a hardship required.
I think it's not negatively impacting your development.
No, we're just simply saying that.
Thank you. That's all I need.
Yeah.
Thank you. Madam Chair, could I ask Ben Taylor to come up for just a minute?
Absolutely.
Mr. Taylor, our One North Shore friends have come and asked for a traffic impact study. What kind of guarantees can we give them that we will have a traffic impact study before we start breaking ground, and we'll understand the impact it'll have on traffic, and pretty much what they were asking for to be seen in that traffic study?
Sure. So the city will require, will require this development to provide a traffic impact study, and that will include everything around it. So that will include the projected traffic volume from the Middle Street project. You see, these folks behind me are developing. It'll include that traffic and all the expected traffic from this proposed development on the Wingfield lot, and all the existing traffic from the shopping center across the street and the existing apartment complex.
I don't want to be onerous here, but apparently we dropped the ball with requiring them, Mill River. Give me some kind of assurance that we're going to do it this time.
I assure it. I thank Ms. Helen Burnsharp for bringing this to my attention. I did not realize that one had been missed. My staff has been fully briefed on the fact that I'm here today, having to explain why we missed something, and they're not going to miss it again.
Okay. And this will be on the developer to
That's
provide.
correct. The developer hires an independent third party to do a traffic impact analysis, and they will show the city what the expected impact is. Now, we all know this will be an impact on traffic. That'll be up to my department, to my division of transportation, to determine if the benefits of the development warrant that increased capacity of traffic, and they will make a recommendation to this to you folks if it gets to that point.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. All right, we got it. All right, thank you so much, Councilman Henderson. All right, and then there's a 2-minute rebuttal from the applicant. And there was a question about parking as well as entrance requirements.
There were quite a few things that were mentioned in both presentations. One of them was transportation study is the first one that was mentioned. We've already hired a transportation engineer. We've taken counts before in the past, and we plan on taking them again. So diversity of housing, I think that comes from the beginning of the form-based code. In that section, it talks about the principles of form-based code. The form-based code was designed to provide diverse housing types. That doesn't mean one specific piece of property has to meet all of the different types of housing types. That's why you've got different sections within the code that have different things. Some for single family, some for multifamily. Conservation of riverfront options. Obviously, we want to preserve the area behind One North Shore. We have had regular meetings with the city various departments about connectivity, about preservation, realignment of the traffic signal. Councilman Henderson has been involved with those. Accessibility. We're trying to develop a neighborhood where people can walk. We've got a grocery store right across the street. I would love to live across the street from a grocery store and be able to walk to it, to bike to it, to go to the park. And so we are exploring all of those options to provide different modes of transportation through this area to help with the traffic. As Councilman Ledford said, we are here to discuss the additional height of the building, which is the stories. The density doesn't change. And so I think that that's what you have to look at today.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for your information. That was it. That was the 2 minutes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, council. You have heard the presentation. You've heard from the applicant as well as opposition. Today, we'll be voting on whether we will uphold or overturn the form-based code decision. That's what the appeal is about. It's not about us doing anything specific with the project, just based on solely their decision to approve 7 stories. So with that, the committee's decision to approve 7 stories. Thank you so much, Phil. So a vote yes means that we uphold that decision. A vote no means that we do not uphold their decision. So is everybody clear on what the vote is, what it stands for, what it means?
We don't need to we're not making a motion to affirm?
Yes, we are making a motion needs to be made. I just wanted to make sure I explained what we were voting for. Yes, so with that in mind, Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, Madam
Just a
Chair.
second, just in case, Phil, anything I missed?
No, ma'am, you got it on there. I guess there's some consideration you've been requested also to defer for a traffic study, so y'all have to consider that as you're going along, but that's the only other thing.
All right, now, Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When I think about the best use for riverfront property, it's not for a surface parking lot. And I think we've got to keep that in mind when we consider this decision. We've already heard from Mill River that they testified that it did not negatively impact their development. So therefore, I move to affirm the decision made by the Form-Based Code Committee.
All right. Okay, we have a motion and a proper second. Any comments or questions? Okay, all in favor of affirming the form-based code decision? I say aye. All right, all opposed? All right, motion passes. That means the appeal, we have a form-based code decision, and there be no additional action from council at this time. So with that, that ends our public hearing.
Yes, ma'am.
And for those who are here for the hearing, you are more than welcome to stay, but if not, you're welcome to leave as well. All right. Yes, and we'll take a 2-minute recess.
All right. Never changed. The entire group. That's amazing. To see something for new development. My concern about this is always, you're going to have crispy critters.
Crispy critters?
Crispy critters is what I'm concerned about right there.
What is that?
That's a heck of a fire. Those are
Oh,
all old tanks.
Yeah, it's been there for,
they
Yes.
gonna live next to it.
And that's, both of these developments are just right next to it.
All right.
That's what I'm always concerned.
We'll get those going.
Yeah, bring me water. I'll take one. Thank you. Our council meeting is back in session. All right, can I get approval on the minutes? Okay, a minute stand without objection. We have ordinances on the final reading. Item A on the transportation, Madam Clerk.
An ordinance relocating a 20-foot wide Riverwalk pedestrian easement located in the 1200 block of Judd Road as detailed on the attached map subject to certain conditions.
Can I get a motion?
Move to approve.
Second. Okay, it's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Ordinances on the first reading. Madam Clerk.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance so as to rezone properties located at 1133 and 1137 Old Pineville Road from R1 residential zone to R3 residential zone.
All right, is the applicant present? Is there any opposition present? All right. Councilman Henderson.
Yeah, the applicant's here.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm not sure, I know we have some opposition here, probably ready to talk this afternoon, but I have been in discussion with the applicant and some of the residents, in fact, and we're trying to come up with maybe a solution that works best for everybody. I am going to make a motion to defer this till October the 10th.
Okay.
But I don't know if, at that, would you just like for me to go ahead and make that motion, ma'am? Since, even though there's, okay. I move to defer this to October the 10th.
Second.
Okay, it's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Madam Clerk, item B.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance so as to rezone property located at 3111 Kelly's Ferry Road from R1 residential zone to R3 residential zone and C2 convenience commercial zone, subject to certain conditions.
Is the applicant present? All right. Any opposition present? All right. That is in District 1 as well. Go ahead, Councilman
good?
Henderson. Yeah, you
I'm
good.
still
Go
going?
ahead.
Okay. I am going to make a motion to amend this afternoon. So first, I guess I'm going to make a motion to approve.
All right, okay.
With that, I'm going to ask the city attorney to read the new conditions that, or additional conditions, I guess, as it may, that will be the motion to amend.
All right.
Yes, sir. And based on the presentation we saw from Ms. Rennick this afternoon, this is only an amendment here, and I'll read the caption just so we've got it correct for the record. An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance so as to rezone property located at 3111 Kelly's Ferry Road from R1 residential zone to R3 residential zone, subject to certain conditions. And there was initially some discussion about C2, which is off of the agenda currently in your ordinance here. This property would all be rezoned R3, that is shown in accordance with your ordinance. And there are 6 conditions to the property. It is a maximum of 18 dwelling units on the property. There's no access to Centro Street allowed, no vehicular access easement remaining through the remaining R1 property to North Moss Avenue allowed. The existing church building will remain, and 10-foot type C landscape buffer will be added in addition to the street yard, and only single-family homes and townhomes will be allowed on the R3 zone adjacent to Centro Street. And those are all of the additional conditions for this rezone.
All right.
Is the applicant good with those conditions? I so move.
Second.
Okay, it's been motioned and properly second. We're voting on the amendment. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Get a motion.
Move as amended.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned and properly second to move as amended. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you so much, Councilman Henderson. Madam Clerk, item C.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance so as to rezone property located at 217 Tremont Street from R3 residential zone to ERM3 Urban Edge Multi-Unit Residential Zone.
Okay, is the applicant present? All right, any opposition present? Okay, Madam Vice Chair?
Karen, would you join us at the podium, please? I just would like for you to state for the record what uses are allowed in ERM3.
Sure, and I brought my ordinance if I can go grab it.
Okay.
What's that noise?
So the ERM residential multi-zone, and I'll just hit some of the, just gonna go down the list if you give me a moment.
Right, and while she's taking a moment, I know everybody hear the beeping. Is that somebody's phone or is that some emergency calling as well? If we could stop that, please. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm going to read the purpose statement, the intent, and I think that gives some guidance. The ERM zone is intended to accommodate a mix of higher intensity multifamily housing options in a pedestrian-friendly environment. Live work is allowed subject to standards that limit the extent of the use. And then the single unit uses are permitted, 2-unit, multi-unit living up to 4, multi-unit living 5+. There's some group livings permitted, and then there are no commercial uses except a daycare is permitted by, I think it's special permit from the Board of Zoning Appeals. A bed and breakfast is permitted, and remote off-site parking, and I think that's related to use is permitted. So there are some public institutional uses, such as churches, schools, that you would find kind of in the normal zone mix.
Okay, thank you very much. When we rezone property, we're rezoning property, not projects. Karen, thank you for the specifics about what is permitted. I'm going to make an amendment to add a condition that we not allow bed and breakfast use on this property. So then we understand that a daycare could be permitted in the future, but all other uses would be residential uses. Could I get someone from the applicant just to come up and confirm that that is okay with you? That you still want to proceed?
Thank you, that's good with us.
Okay, if that's
So they're
great
back
with you
there.
guys. All right. Let's see if I can do this amend condition, approve.
Right, so get on the floor first.
First, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
All right, it's been motioned and properly second.
Thank you. Now I'd like to make a motion to amend. Just want to add the one condition that this property cannot be used as a bed and breakfast usage would not be permitted on this site.
Okay, that's been informed. All right, it's been motioned and properly second on the amendment. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Amendment passes.
All right, so I'd like to move forward on
First reading is.
moving as amended.
Yes, ma'am. All right, it's been motioned and properly second as amended. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? All right, motion passes.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you. All right, Madam Clerk, item D.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance so as to rezone property located at 5026 Old Godsey Lane from R1 residential zone to C2 convenience commercial zone subject to certain conditions.
All right. Is the applicant present? Any opposition present? That's in District 3, Councilman Smith.
Madam Chair, let's make this one easy. Move approval.
All right, it's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Madam Clerk, item E.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance so as to lift condition numbers 2, 3, and 4 and amending condition number 1 from ordinance number 9135 of previous case number 1989-0046 for a part of a property located at 5431 Hickson Pike.
Okay, is the applicant present? All right, we have an applicant. Any opposition present? Okay, Councilman Smith.
Madam Chair, I believe we deal with making the next one difficult, so
Okay.
this one will move approval.
Okay, thank you so much. It's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed, motion passes. Madam Clerk, item F.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance so as to rezone properties located at 5138, 5144, 5150, and 5157 Strickland Drive, 5422 Old Hickson Pike, and an unaddressed parcel in the 5400 block of Old Hickson Pike from R2 residential zone to R3 residential zone, subject to certain conditions.
All right, the applicant present? All right, any opposition present? Councilman Smith? All right,
All right, thank you, Madam Chair.
thank you.
Ms. Rennick, do you mind coming forward? I would just want to read the conditions that we discussed earlier today into the record, please. There are two in particular I was very concerned about as far as egress onto Old Hickson Pike, as well as no development north of Old Hickson Pike between that and the creek.
Okay, so read all 6 that are proposed
Yes,
currently
please.
in the ordinance. Okay, a 10 type C landscape buffer, I think that's supposed to be 10-foot type C landscape buffer shall be located along the perimeter of the development except where the turnaround is provided on the Strickland Circle Alley. Maximum density of 132 units. Lighting to be directed away from all residential areas. A clubhouse and pool shall be made part of the development for the enjoyment of future residents. No development permitted north of Old Hickson Pike except for greenway uses, and driveway location to be off of Old Hickson Pike.
Off of Old Hickson Pike, define that for me.
So my understanding from that is that the location to access the proposed new development, which is an apartment complex, should be from Old Hickson Pike.
Okay. Mr. Price, if you don't mind. I know we've had a number of conversations on this, and I've gone back and forth with concerns from residents in the area. What is your stance on having that access on Old Hickson Pike? I know currently there's a driveway right there. Is that required in this development, or is that something that we talked about coming in off of Skillern instead?
So currently, our plans show coming in off of Skillern Drive. In my estimation, coming in off of Old Hickson Pike would be a mistake because Old Hickson Pike, portions of it fall below the 100-year flood. In addition to that, Old Hickson Pike is fairly narrow versus Skillern, which is of a sufficient width for emergency vehicles as well as the residents coming in and out. And it keeps traffic closer to Hickson Pike and coming out at that intersection versus pushing it back more into the residential area. So in my estimation, I would actually change number 6, instead of saying the driveway location to be off of Old Hickson Pike, I would reverse it and say no access off of Old Hickson Pike. To me, would be the right plan, the right move as it relates to this development and to protect those properties that are off of Old Hickson Pike currently.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Price. Ms. Rennick? What's the purpose of the last condition?
The applicant reminded me before the meeting that had been added at Planning Commission. Staff had noted that the original site plan that showed no access was something that staff supported and maintains kind of a condition that we've tried to keep along Old Hickson Pike, which is to reduce the number of access points to commercial properties. So staff supported the fact that there was no access onto Old Hickson Pike.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. All right, Madam Clerk, we're working on good old amendments this evening.
All right,
I move approval.
all right.
I now move to amend by changing the language in the last condition, Phil.
Condition 6.
Condition 6 to no access off Old Hickson Pike.
Yes, sir.
All right. It's been motioned and properly second for the amendment. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Oh. All right. Councilman Ledford.
I just wanted to confirm that Mr. Price is in agreement on that.
I am in agreement on that, but there was one other additional change that we would like to request.
If it's about density, no.
Okay. If I'm...
At this time.
Okay, understand.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Any additional comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Amendment passes.
Move to approve as amended, Madam Clerk.
Second.
Okay, it's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor to move, to approve as amended?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes as amended.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk, item G.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance so as to rezone property located at 6011 Lee Highway from C2 Convenience Commercial Zone to UGC Urban General Commercial Zone, subject to certain conditions.
Okay, it's in District 5. Is there an applicant present? All right, any opposition present? All right, Councilman Hester.
Madam Chair, move to approve.
Okay, I got a motion and proper second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Madam Clerk, item H.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance so as to rezone property located at 7283 Bonnie Oaks Drive from R4 Special Zone with conditions and R1 Residential Zone to C2 Convenience Commercial Zone, subject to certain conditions.
All right, is the applicant present? All right, any opposition present? Okay, Councilwoman Burrs.
Madam Chair, I've heard no opposition from anyone,
All right.
which is unusual for Bonnie.
White,
Thank you, God. So, given that, I move to approve.
All right, got a motion and proper second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Madam Clerk, item I.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance so as to rezone an unaddressed property located in the 2800 block of Dodge Avenue from M1 Manufacturing Zone to UGC Urban General Commercial Zone, subject to certain conditions.
Okay, is the applicant present? All right, any opposition present? All right. Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Based on the conversation that we had at our agenda session, this is in your district, and it's our understanding that there are ongoing conversations with the community. I move to defer this until the 10th of October.
All right, thank you, Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, second.
All right, it's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you so much. Madam Clerk, item J.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance so as to rezone properties located at 1115 and 1117 East 14th Street and an unaddressed property in the 1100 block of East 4th Street from R3 Residential Zone to RTZ Residential Townhouse Zero Lot Line Zone with conditions to RTZ Residential Townhouse Zero Lot Line Zone, subject to certain conditions.
All right, is the applicant present? All right, any opposition present? This is in District 8. Councilwoman Knoll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am going to move to defer until September 19th because I have not spoken to the developer on this at all.
Okay, is that in the form of a motion?
That is in form of a motion.
All right, it's been moved and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Madam Clerk, item K.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance so as to rezone part of a property located at 1710 South Holdsclaw Avenue from R2 Residential Zone to UGC Urban General Commercial Zone, subject to certain conditions.
Okay, is the applicant present? Okay, is the applicant, any opposition present? Okay, this is in District 8.
Okay. Madam Chair, again, I am going to move to defer until September the 19th. I did speak with the developer after 3:30 session, so we're going to have a conversation.
All right, in form of,
The
okay.
form of motion.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Madam Clerk, item L.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance so as to rezone property located at 2910 Calhoun Avenue from R2 Residential Zone to UGC Urban General Commercial Zone, subject to certain conditions.
Okay, is there an applicant present? All right, any opposition present? Okay, that is in District 8 again.
Madam Chair, I am on this defer train tonight. So I'm going to move to defer until September 19th. But I did speak to Mr. Jones, and this is due to a language barrier. The person I needed to translate for me was sick with COVID. So I'm going to defer until then.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Madam Clerk, item M.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to lift condition number 2 from ordinance number 13624, previous case number MR 2020-0132, after the abandonment of parts of several streets and alleys located near 901 South Holsclaw Avenue.
All right. Is the applicant present? Is there any opposition present? All right. This is in districts 8 and 9. Councilwoman Coonrod.
Defer until October the 10th.
All right. Councilwoman Knoll.
Yeah, the same thing, defer. I mean, because I had some opposition
Okay, so.
to it, yeah.
Second.
Second, yeah.
Okay, all right. It's been moved and properly second to defer. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Madam Clerk, item N.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to lift condition number 2 from ordinance number 13625 from the original abandonment of previous case number MR 2020-0134 from property located in the 1300 block of Vance Avenue.
All right. Is the applicant present? Any opposition present? This also is in districts 8 and 9. Councilwoman Knoll.
Madam Chair, move to defer until October the 10th.
All right, it's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Madam Clerk, item O.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to rezone properties located at 510 South Willow Street from R4 Special Zone to C2 Convenience Commercial Zone, subject to certain conditions.
All right, is the applicant present? Okay, so the applicant, any opposition present? This is in District 9. Right?
Second.
Okay, it's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Madam Clerk, item P.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to rezone an unaddressed tract of land located in the 3100 block of East 26th Street from R1 Residential Zone to UGC Urban General Commercial Zone, subject to certain conditions.
Okay, is there an applicant present? Okay, I see the applicant. Any opposition present? All right, we see opposition. This is in District 9. Councilwoman Coonrod. Okay. Okay, it's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? All right, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. All right, Madam Clerk, item Q.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 2000 Dodson Avenue from M2 Light Industrial Zone to R3 Residential Zone, subject to certain conditions.
Okay, is the applicant present? Any opposition present? All right, this is in District 9. All right, got a motion and proper second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. We made it to resolutions. All right, council, if there are no objections, we would like to take items A through E as a group. If there are any objections, just hit your light. All right, Madam Clerk, A through E, please.
Item A, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a brownfield voluntary agreement with the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, TDEC, in substantially the form attached for the property at 159 Helm Road, further identified as tax map number 135027.03 for the payment of fees as outlined in the agreement for an amount not to exceed $3,000. Item B, a resolution authorizing the mayor, his designee, to award up to $40,000 to Habitat for Humanity of the Greater Chattanooga area to construct a house at 223 Canary Circle for affordable home ownership. Item C, a resolution authorizing the mayor, his designee, to award up to $40,000 to Habitat for Humanity of the Greater Chattanooga area to construct a house at 231 Canary Circle for affordable home ownership. Item D, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a license agreement with the state of Tennessee in substantially the form attached for a 10-year renewable license at no cost to use and maintain a portion of the premises adjacent to SR 58 further identified as tax map number 145KB001 at 1931 Reggie White Boulevard for Finley Stadium volunteer and event staff parking. Item E, a resolution authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into an interlocal agreement with Hamilton County on behalf of the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office to provide safe and stable housing by establishing and operating a housing navigation source to serve individuals with complex needs experiencing homelessness.
All right, council, you've heard.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Madam Clerk, item F.
A resolution authorizing revisions to the Employee Information Guide, EIG, to be effected upon approval. Revisions include Policy 1, Purpose and Objective, Policy 2, General Policies, Policy 4, Personnel, Human Resource Records, Policy 6, Outside Employment, and Policy 8, Separation of Employment, and authorizing formatting and table of contents updates.
All right, Councilman Ledford.
Madam Clerk, following up on our 3:30 discussion with the administration on deferring this 1 week until we have further clarification on some of the EIG items that we've been discussing.
All right. All right, it's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. If there's no objection from council, and if so, please hit your light. We'll take items G through I as a group with G's alternate version. Or
Do we need to take H separate?
H separate?
Each separate.
H separate? All right. In G's alternate version?
Yes.
All right. So Madam Clerk, if you would read G's alternate version and I together, please.
Item G, a resolution approving a new special exceptions permit for an existing liquor store located at, I'm sorry, you said the alternate version.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me begin that again. A resolution approving a new special exceptions permit for an existing liquor store located at 6032 Highway 153, Chattanooga, Tennessee, 37343, subject to certain conditions. Item I, a resolution authorizing the city of Chattanooga to apply for and, if awarded, accept a Reconnecting Communities and Neighborhood Program Planning Grant from the United States Department of Transportation for feasibility studies for implementing the transportation project recommendations included in the West Side Evolves Plan. If awarded, acceptance of the grant will be dependent upon inclusion in the capital budget and approval by city council for an amount not to exceed $2 million, with the city's contribution not to exceed $500,000.
All right, council, you've heard the readings.
Second.
Okay, it's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? Okay, Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Hey, Phil, real quick, on G,
Yes, sir.
is this a late ad?
The ad is simply requested to comply with the provisions of the ordinance that says if they lease the property, it has to be at least 500 feet away. The property itself, I believe right now, the zone is okay for ownership, but if there's a leasehold involved, there's a separate provision in the code.
Okay, just want to make sure that was covered. Thank you,
Yes, sir.
sir.
All right, thank you, Councilman Smith. Any other comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? All right. Motion passes. I'm sorry. All right, item H.
A resolution approving a special exceptions permit for a residential plan unit development for property located at 1619 Gray Road, subject to certain conditions.
All right. Council, item H.
I move to approve.
Okay, Councilman Ledford.
Madam Clerk, can I ask if the applicant is present, please? And if there is any opposition present? Okay. Karen, I'd like to see a full presentation, please.
Okay, we went over this briefly at council. This is at committee this afternoon. This is a request for a special permit for residential plan unit development, a PUD at 1619 Gray Road. The original proposal was for 31 single-family detached lots with frontages less than 60 feet in width. The property is zoned R1. The yellow on the screen is the R1 property. There is zoning on Jenkins Road that allows for a little bit higher density, and you're picking up a piece of that on the eastern side in that brown shade. But Gray Road in this area is R1. There's been no recent zoning history for the site, and based on the existing R1 residential zone, I think I noted this at committee, our staff report said the site could permit a lot yield of about 38 dwelling units. I think that seems a little bit high based on the lot square footage, but we just noted the actual yield might be a little less by the time infrastructure is installed. The surrounding development form on Gray Road is single unit residential. Lot sizes range from about 0.2 acres to 9 acres in size. These are larger lots on Gray Road. I'm showing the 100 and 500-year floodplain that runs along the rear of the property. There's some discussion about that in the staff report and then in the staff recommendation. Staff noted that the site is located in the Area 11 East Brainerd Plan. The plan identifies the site as suburban residential place type, which includes single-family detached as the primary use. Density in the suburban residential place type can range from 3 to 10 units per acre, but this is a PUD. This is a planned unit development. The underlying zoning is what controls the density for the property. The Area 11 plan notes that area residents expressed a high level of concern about flooding, and the plan provides some recommendations. So I think I'd mentioned previously there are 4 or 5 bullet points with real specific recommendations. I'm just summarizing that it includes preserving land for natural stormwater management, wildlife habitat, and clustering homes on smaller lots to minimize overall impacts. The staff found the proposed single-unit detached development compatible with the suburban residential place type, and staff recommended a condition related to development beyond the floodplain to ensure compatibility with their 11 plan goals. So staff is recommending approve with condition with no residential lots allowed west of the 100-year floodplain. There's quite a bit of opposition present. Just to summarize, concerns about water runoff, Gray Road being a cut-through, just the amount of traffic and overcrowding in the area, the road conditions, and then flooding. So the applicant had come with some conditions that had been worked on prior to Planning Commission. Planning Commission found that the request with conditions is compatible with the Area 11 plan development form and adjacent land uses. This comes with the Planning Commission recommendation to approve the residential PUD with conditions as listed there, the 7 conditions listed on the screen.
All right.
I rescind my motion. I got ahead of myself. I apologize.
All right. Thank you so much. Councilman Ledford.
Madam Clerk, I'd like to hear from the applicant
Okay.
and then also hear from opposition, please.
All right, that's fine. Applicant, if you come up, we get 7 minutes on the clock, please.
Thank you. And if you could pull up the site plan currently as presented, Karen, who is more technologically advanced than I certainly am. Thank you. Mike Price, MAP Engineers. So we did have a rather spirited community meeting regarding this particular case. And afterwards, I was able to meet with several of the individuals that were at that meeting. And through that, we looked at developing some conditions that we thought would help ameliorate and sort of address the concerns of those residents in the area. They are the 7 conditions that were approved at Planning Commission. And to essentially summarize those, we wanted to try to create a landscaped with a fence there along the front to create a nice entrance as it relates to coming into the development. And then we looked at widening the lots to a minimum of 55 feet in width to 60 feet. We reduced the number from 31 to 27. We also added trees to be planted along the property line. And then in addition to that, we created a 10-foot landscape buffer on the rear of the property to be planted. We kept the homes that were on the other side of the floodplain, But I would note that the resident below us, to the south of us, he's actually got a bridge that crosses the creek. And so what we would do is just simply have a single driveway that would provide access to the 3 homes in the back, all of which is located above the 100-year flood. We basically, if you really boil it all down, where the sticking point came in is they wanted both a fence, the one resident that has basically tried to represent the area, he wanted a fence and trees. And what we stated is, look, we have done all of these items. We've reduced density. We agreed to planting trees. We're going to do the landscaping along the front. We've eliminated accessory dwelling units as it relates to density and your concerns there. But there comes a point where we've done all we can do, and we are building $500,000 to $600,000 homes and up. And I don't think that backing up and looking at a $600,000 home in anybody's book is a bad thing, especially given the number of trees that we're planting in through here. In fact, if you look at the main individual that has been in opposition to this, his garage faces us. We're not putting garages facing him. So I think by planting trees and by doing the items that we've agreed to, we have bent over backwards. We've shown Mr. Issa, who is looking at doing this development, who is a good builder in the area, that he is more than willing to do whatever he can that makes sense as it relates to putting conditions on the development. But there comes a point where it's like, that's just a bridge too far. So we asked to stick with the 7 conditions. We think that we have more than adequately addressed the concerns. His home sits, the resident to the north is some 45 feet off the property line. The resident to the south of us is 90 feet off the property line. The resident to the north has 6.2 acres. We have, the property to the south has 8.5 acres. I think one of the conditions also he wanted was that we wouldn't put any houses on the back side of the creek. Well, that's over 600 feet from his house. I mean, how far do we have to be away from being able to put houses, away from it? I don't understand what the impact is 600 feet from someone's home. So with that, we would just simply ask that the conditions as approved at Planning Commission, which all the opposition was there and heard, and I thought we were really moving in a good direction. We've just hit a few sticking points, and I just don't think that those others are ones that certainly we can agree to, nor do I think that they are good conditions. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, Councilman Ledford, and I do also have a light by Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know what, I will defer to Councilman Smith and then follow up. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Councilman Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Price, just to confirm and make sure I was understanding what was being requested and the additional condition you were not amenable to. On the diagram we're looking at right here, where was the fence requested to be placed?
So they wanted the fence to be placed along the northern and southern boundary lines, basically from Gray Road.
Give me left, right, and whatnot, because I don't see our north.
No, they can't see there.
Orientation.
So basically, the sheet is looking due north.
Oh, there it is. Okay. I didn't see the little north. Sorry, I didn't see the compass down there.
So
Okay,
if you-
got it. Go ahead.
So if you start at Gray Road and work your way left along the north and southern property lines, that's where they're looking for the fence.
It's the whole length of
The entire
okay.
length, which is some 1,300 feet long. And so what we have offered, what we have stated is, we will plant trees as shown on the plan, which begins there at Gray Road and continues back essentially to when we hit our community lots. And so in other words, wherever we've got houses backing up to our neighbors, we're screening them. We're just not wanting to put in a fence.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Councilman Ledford? All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, all right, here we go, Mike. So I have a couple quick questions. If you can go back a few slides, I'm interested in the floodplain. Okay, so I understand it is not illegal to build in a floodplain. Matter of fact, I want to go across the street. That caught my eye, 1614, 1618, 1624, 1700, 1704. Those look like they're all in a floodplain.
They are.
Okay, I find that interesting. So the next I want to talk about is by right.
Okay.
By right, you can build how many houses?
By right today, under the current zoning, you roughly can put in about 24, 25 homes thereabouts with accessory dwelling units.
And by right, we can do ADUs.
Correct.
Okay. Do any of these house plans, do you know, I'm getting ahead of myself, this is not a zoning question, but do they, house plans call for or leave space for ADUs because they are allowed by right?
In talking with Gus, in terms of the type homes that he's looking at constructing, he does not see that accessory dwelling units are going to be a component of these particular homes. These will all be singular structure. There won't be any separate standalone garages. Everything will be encompassed in the home itself. So we don't really see accessory dwelling units as being a part of this development as we are currently proposing it.
Will the space be there if someone wants to build an ADU per our regulations?
I do not believe, based upon the plans I've seen, that would be Gus's plans. If for some reason this were to be denied, and then he would have to look at an alternative plan, then that might end up being on the table.
Okay. My next question is, let's go forward a few. In the conditions, let's talk about the sticking point. So one of those is the floodplain, which you say that's a no-go for your, if it were to remain as it is without the PUD, can you build back there?
Yes.
Okay.
And the other thing I would point out is, if you look at your drawing, you see the blue line, which is the center line of the creek. You then have a dashed line, which indicates the current 100-year flood plain through there. And you see that essentially the creek buffer and the 100-year flood, other than on the southern portion of that one lot, essentially runs right with the stream buffer. And so what that really tells you is that 100-year flood is probably less than a foot deep in that particular area on that lot.
Talk to me about stormwater management, because that was a really big deal, conversation-wise, in our meeting.
Correct. Given this area, especially on the east side of Gray Road, where people have seen flooding up and down through that area. So if you'll notice, we do show the two blue areas, which we show would be retention ponds, which we would deal with both water quality as well as quantity. And so we will be obviously addressing stormwater runoff and not increasing the runoff onto our neighbors.
And by law, you can't.
By law, you can. I mean, it does happen, but by law, you cannot. That's correct.
Are these over-engineered?
I try to make them over-engineered as it relates to stormwater, yes, sir.
Okay. Let me go to, the next question is, in the meeting, we had talked about, obviously, the width of Gray Road. Are you widening Gray Road in front of or making any improvements to turn lanes?
We will be widening Gray Road. We will also be dedicating right-of-way as one of the conditions to ensure that we get, per CDOT's requirements, the widening occurring directly in front of our property.
So CDOT has looked at this and has been made aware.
I won't speak for CDOT that they've looked at this. I don't think we've reached that level yet.
I'm looking for Mr. Taylor. Did he exit?
I think after the last conversation, he decided to hit door left as quickly
Well,
as
I did
possible.
want to say, and I said this at 3:30, that out of that meeting, I heard that the residents of Gray Road had tried in the past to get speed humps, and that road did not qualify. Well, out of that meeting, I heard what they said, and Mr. Taylor has agreed that that road is a qualifier to be reduced to 25 miles an hour, which we will do that as soon as possible. The next phase includes the residents, and that is to have them petition or sign off on speed deterrent humps to basically make that Gray Road not so appetizing. And if anything, I think that was a win. Out of meeting for 3+ hours and listening and working through some things, it just proves what we can do together.
Yes, sir.
And I think that's great, because we will get that 25 miles an hour. We will get speed humps if everybody still wants them. If they don't want them, then that's up to them. But I'm willing to push for it and have already pushed for the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit to try and keep that from being a cut-through and more of a speedway. As I travel that road, quite frankly, myself a lot, and I'd travel 25 because it's not safe really any more than that. Tell me about the conversation. We covered the back lot. Tell me about the conversation between the fence and the trees? Because right now, I see trees, and I see trees in the conditions coming out of PC. And I understand that it is desired to have trees and a fence, but I'm also seeing trees in your conditions. Can you walk me through that a little bit more?
So we agreed to the trees, and we said that we would plant those. And so what has occurred is there was a continued request to put in a fence. And since you only have a 25-foot backyard and you plant trees and put a fence in those particular close proximities, the trees will grow into the fence, and it creates a unmanageable, untenable situation as it relates to the residents being able to do that. So what we said is that's just not something that we can do. So we think that planting trees is the better of the two. If individuals, as they come along and are building their homes in through there, want a fence, then they can certainly do that. But we just didn't think that placing a fence was really a necessary item that needed to occur as a result of this development.
So let me boil that question down again, and that is, are trees in the plan that you have submitted already?
It is a condition.
Okay, but not the fence?
Not the fence.
So as written, as coming out of PC, the trees are in?
The trees are in, and the fence is up to the option of each individual homeowner as building their home.
Okay, Madam Clerk, that's all I have for right this minute. I want to love to hear from opposition before we go any further.
All right. Sure,
I'm sorry.
Yes, Madam Vice Chair Hill, then we'll hear from opposition.
Mike, I do have a question. As we looked at this during Planning and Zoning Committee, the condition to not allow accessory dwelling units was interesting to me. You know, that's something that, as the city, we're looking at how we can increase density in a low-impact way. And you make the point that these lots aren't going to, they're not going to be separate structures for garages, but our accessory dwelling unit ordinance includes interior accessory dwelling units. So above a garage, for example, or around the back of the house to be able to create a mother-in-law suite, granny flat, a college apartment for a child. So it concerns me that we would take that right away from these R1 homeowners. Help me understand how that's going to be implemented over the long term. Are you going to have an HOA and that'll be part of your neighborhood covenant? And why does it matter if for a homeowner to subdivide 700 square feet of their home to give somebody some privacy?
I'm going to let the opposition answer that question because honestly, we didn't see an issue with it, but at the meeting, it was certainly one that there was no one in the room as it relates to opposition that was for letting us do that. So we just simply said, fine, look, to try to, again, cross the gap that we've got between what we're proposing and what the residents are asking, we'll eliminate that. But from my standpoint, it's not a major issue from my standpoint, but it's something that we stated that we would do, trying to appease and reach that common ground.
About how many square feet are these houses going to be?
These will be somewhere between 19 to 2,400 square feet.
Okay. Is God making more land?
Only in the case of volcanoes is typically when I see that.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you so much, Mike. Okay, we'll hear from the opposition. Can I get 9 minutes on the clock, please?
Thank you, members of the City Council. Scott Berkfold, 1625 Gray Road. I'm the property owner immediately adjacent to the north. Just as an aside, since we ended with the ADU question, I'll go to that first. I don't remember anybody from the neighborhood talking about ADUs or bringing that up. That was brought up by the developer as a proposed concession. I think it's kind of a red herring for the reason you noted that, you know, most people, if they're going to do a mother-in-law suite above a finished garage that's part of the attached house, I don't know that anybody in the neighborhood raised any issue about that. I don't remember that comment being made. So I don't know how exactly the genesis of that came up.
Thank you.
It's probably a good idea to not have an ADU there, but I don't remember that being a big issue. The big picture here is that right now, this is an area that's been devastated by the tornado. People have been going through many years of reconstruction. I've been reconstructing for 3.5 years to move in next weekend from the April 2020 tornado. The road at the proposed development site is 17 feet, 1 inch wide. Mr. Price admitted that under the International Fire Code and the standards that apply to subdivisions, the minimum width of a road is 22 feet. So it's 17 feet wide all the way across. And I heard just now for the first time that they're actually going to widen the road a little bit at the very entrance to the site. But we have people run off the road all the time. Me just recently, because someone was driving a trailer, doing nothing wrong, driving in the dead center of his lane, being very careful, but that school bus or that MARTA bus or that trailer that's hauling a skid steer and all the other construction equipment that's going to be coming out of this site for the next 3.5 years, Mr. Price said it'd be through 2026, is dangerous. And I got run off the road 3 weeks ago and nobody was doing anything wrong. It's just a dangerous road. So the opposition that was at that 3-hour meeting was unanimous. 100% of the people on Gray Road, which right now only has 34 residences, and on this 1 6-acre lot, we would nearly double the number of residences on the road by adding 27. So there's a significant policy-based concern about that. We were kind of presented with the idea, well, this is going to get approved. It's kind of a done deal. Your best bet is to argue for conditions. And so we did. We had some meetings with the developer and with his engineer and some discussions that were helpful. But our argument was essentially this. City Council should follow the planning staff recommendation because a PUD is essentially like a package group of variances, right? You get exceptions to the road frontage requirement, you get exceptions to the lot size requirement, and you do all this on the idea that the City Council will impose conditions that mitigate the impact of that development, that higher density development than what you would normally get if you just did R1 lots. And so our argument was, the staff's recommendation to not build in the 100-year floodplain, and it floods terribly. I sent pictures to Councilmember Ledford just to show how bad this was in recent days with our heavy flooding, or heavy raining and flooding in August. So follow the staff members' recommendations, the city staff planning recommendations about not doing any development in the floodplain or to the west of the floodplain. If that were the case, then where we have screening trees right now on this plan, okay. But if you're going to build the entire width of the site all the way back 1,250 feet, then the screening that you would provide, you should provide for privacy reasons all the way along that. If staff recommendation is followed and we stop at the 100-year floodplain and we don't build a driveway through it, and we don't build 3 houses in the back of it. And by the way, there was something that Mr. Price mentioned I don't think is accurate. He said they're going to add a vegetation buffer. Not true. They're going to take out a bunch of trees, the few trees that are remaining post-tornado, they're going to take those out for those 3 houses in the back at the west side of the property, only to leave a 10-foot vegetation buffer that's pre-existing. So they're removing what few trees we have and leaving 10 foot of vegetation, but they're not adding a vegetation buffer. And so our argument is follow the staff recommendation, stop it at those houses that are being screened, and then wherever the extent of the allowable development is. So if you follow the staff recommendation, that would go back about 700 or 800 feet and stop at the entrance to the 100-year floodplain. If you don't, wherever the extent of the allowable development is, mitigate the impacts of the development with screening and with trees. Screening provides the privacy. That makes a lot of sense. It provides the privacy for the new homeowners that are coming and the people who have invested their lives for many years and live there on the lot. The second thing is the security fence, or an aluminum fence, not an expensive thing, but an aluminum fence, the entire length of the allowed area of development. If it's all the way back, then do the fence all the way back. If it stops at 700 feet, like staff recommended, then it could stop at 700 feet. But that serves a security purpose. And that is, if you look at this is Bobby Fryer's lot to the south. His driveway runs all the way along the property line. To the north, it's not shown on this picture, but my driveway runs for 700 feet along the other property line. I'm concerned about little children, young children, dogs darting out of these backyards, and they're almost immediately in driveways. And so that's the concern that we have about the fence. So the big picture here is we would ask that planning staff recommendation about good planning principles of not building anything in the floodplain or to the west of it be followed. And if that's the case, then the screening trees and the security fence could stop where the houses stop. If planning's recommendation is rejected and the developer is allowed to build all the way through the floodplain and on the other side, then we would ask that the privacy screening continue the length of the allowable development, and that the tree, or the fence would continue for the same reason of safety issues, because there will be families, presumably children, pets, and so forth, wherever there are houses. And so those were the sticking points. I will say, they came back and they said, well, if you let us build, if you allow us to do the fence, and you can get trees, by the way, that go up instead of out and not crowding the fence, you just have to plan for that with your landscaper. But he said, if you want to put the trees on your property, and he said to Mr. Fryer, if you want to put the trees on your property, then we'll do those, and after a year, they're your issue. And in digging and planting those trees, if we tear up your natural gas line or your utility lines or your invisible dog fence that's there right now to keep my dog on my property, then Mr. Issa's not going to be responsible for tearing up your utility lines. And I'm like, obviously, Mr. Fryer and I are both resolutely against that, because this isn't our development. If I was doing 27 houses and making profits on 27 houses that start at $600,000 or $650,000 and go up to $700,000 and making millions of dollars, then it might be appropriate to impose conditions on me. But the way that a PUD works is that the developer gets the benefit of this higher density and less requirements that he gets essentially a package of variances from. So whatever impacts of that development should be mitigated by him. Last thing I'll say is, this is a phenomenon that within 1,800 feet as the crow flies, we have 250 houses being added at Heritage Point. We have a new commercial development behind the Waterfall House at Jenkins and East Brainerd Road. What was recently approved, I believe, was a church and a school, an institution further down Gray Road at 1725. Plus, we have all the development in Igo Gap and the 340 homes that are going at the Cygnus site where they're doing the school and a bunch of development. So we have an overburdened infrastructure. That's a common theme. Everybody's heard that before. That's nothing new. But for this particular site, we're just asking, follow the staff recommendation, and wherever the extent of the allowed development is, please mitigate the impacts of the development as a PUD is designed to do through the screening trees and the fence. I know I've taken up most of my time, but I'm available for any questions that council might have.
All right, any questions from council? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, sorry. Hit your, come on back, I'm sorry. You go ahead and hit your light.
Scott, let me walk through a few things, because we and I have had a lot of dialogue, and so in the beginning, the neighborhood is completely against the PUD.
Yes, that's true.
Okay, so that's first and foremost.
Yes.
So to solve all of your problems, deny the PUD.
If the plan unit development were denied,
Deny the PUD.
if the city, everybody on Gray Road that's lived there would be happy with that result if the PUD were denied.
And would you hold anybody responsible for what they're able to do under their rights? No trees, no nothing, building in the floodplain, all that happens.
Well, I think that's a little bit overstated. I think the predicate to the question is a little bit incorrect, because when you look at the floodplain, the area of allowable development is a lot less than what this shows, right? Because you're losing about 2 acres. Like, I've always understood, I can't build back there. There's a TVA power line, all that. So I can't build back there, and I've never thought that I could.
But what I'm hearing is, what I'm trying to get to is that there's no PUD, nobody on Gray Road, including you and Mr. Fryer, are going to have a problem with whatever happens under the rights of the property. You're not going to come to council and say,
Well,
no, just say yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Ledford, to be fair, when you say whatever happens, we
Whatever
don't.
they're allowed to do, Scott, it's a legitimate question.
Well,
Are you willing to accept that?
I think the people on Gray Road would advocate for good development, whatever it is. And if,
I'm asking you a question that I need you to answer, and you haven't been able to answer it for months.
I can answer
Do you
it.
want the PUD denied?
The preference would be that this high-density development would be denied. Now, let me qualify my answer, because yes, that would be the goal, for the PUD to be denied. because it would prevent a lot of these problems. Now you're saying, well, what if they build everything that R1 allows? I don't think that's going to happen, because otherwise, why we're here seeking a special exceptions permit for a PUD? Right? I think that the maximum potential economically out of the property is a PUD. And so I think that's why we're here, is to get the exception to the dimension requirements.
So what I'm trying to get to, and we were doing this for 3 hours, is if the PUD is denied, the onus is on. If whatever happens, and that is, you abide by that. That's what I'm trying to get to, because hear me out, because I know you want to win, and I want you to win. I want you to win. I want everybody to win. At some point, someone's going to build on that property. Now, what's going to happen probably in the next 12 months, and I won't call Mr. Anderson up here right now, but what's going to happen is our zoning code is going to change. And I guarantee you, and I promise you, and I know you don't want to believe me, and I feel like you want to roll the dice and say no one's going to build there. But that 7,500 square foot is going to go down. The county's already at 6,000 square feet. I don't know if you knew that. And that's why you're seeing Bell Mill Road. That is a elimination for a PUD, to be honest with you. It doesn't require a PUD. And I bet the city, by the time it's said and done, it's probably going to be somewhere close to 5,000 square feet. And we're working through that right now with our consultants. And I want to make sure that I tell you that, because it's a great fear of mine that in 24 months, they just sit on it, and they come back and they say, we don't need your PUD, we don't need to build your trees, and we're going to build in the floodplain, we don't need to do any of this. We have what the city of Chattanooga is allowing us to do under these new zoning regulations. That's what my fear is. And so I'm asking you, are you okay with that?
Councilmember Ledford, I'm okay with what the law allows, but I need to say that from the August 7th meeting forward, which I think was spirited is a good way to put it, because the opposition was universal from the current residents, is that we were presented with a proposition that the PUD would be approved and focus on the conditions. And so what I came here tonight, I spent very little time talking about the extent of the opposition, because I thought and taking what you said at face value, which I have every reason to understand with your experience, that the PUD would get approved. So we're here to say the staff recommendation of no development in the floodplain or to the west of it was a sound recommendation. And if whatever the extent of allowed development on the site is, provide for the screening, trees, and the fence to mitigate the impacts that the PUD would engender. And I've been working on that, from that proposition for the last month, from what you told us was sort of a done deal. And
one thing you're not going to do is put words in my mouth. I just never said it was a done deal.
Okay, maybe you didn't use those very words, but I think it was very clear that the city was going to approve this. That's what we were told.
What I was the PUD process and what the criteria, and sitting through almost 1,500 zoning cases, what my experience and advice was.
Sure.
Okay. And I think that's worth something.
And I took that advice, that was valuable.
I know it wasn't heard very loud, but it is advice. And I do have an ear to the ground, and I'm worried. And I'm worried that if it's not a PUD, it's not controlled by these parameters, if it's not controlled by these regulations, then at some point, somebody's going to be really mad. And I'm going to go, well, that's what you wanted.
Councilmember Ledford, that's why I'm here focusing on the conditions.
So
we would ask that the conditions by staff be imposed.
I'm going to do something else. I'm going to move to deny the PUD.
Second. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, it's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? All right, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you so much, Councilman Ledford. Item J, we'll take J and K as a group, Madam Clerk, if there's no opposition. All right.
Item J, a resolution authorizing the Chief of the Chattanooga Police Department to collaborate and accept a portion of the State of Tennessee Office of Criminal Justice Program FY 2023 Violent Crime Intervention Fund Grant VCIF from the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office, along with other local municipalities partnered with the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office, with Chattanooga receiving 35 license plate readers, LPRS, value at no more than $400,000, with which equipment will be used with the other LPRs already in place and utilized within the city limits. Each LPR location is on a state route and has been approved by the Tennessee Department of Transportation, TDOT. Item K, a resolution authorizing the Chattanooga Police Department along with the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office to apply for and, if awarded, accept FY 2023 Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Grant, also known as the JAG Grant, from the Department of Justice to award the Chattanooga Police Department $134,571 for purchasing equipment and training, and where the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office will receive $57,673 for a grant period October 1, 2023 through September 30, 2027, for a total amount not to exceed $192,244.
All right, all right, well, all right then. We moved and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. All right, and I had,
Madam Chair.
yes, Councilman Ledford.
I apologize. We did not allow the applicant his 2-minute rebuttal
Oh, okay.
in the exchange there. So may I ask for his 2 minutes to be reinstated for
Sure.
rebuttal, please?
All right, go ahead. Can I get 2 minutes on the clock, please?
Thank you. So I know you've already taken a vote. I don't know if you would reconsider, but here's what I would say. The person in opposition said he'd take staff recommendation. And the staff recommendation doesn't have any trees, doesn't have any buffering at all. All it simply did is eliminate 3 houses 600 feet away from his house. Now, so he's telling you, it sounds like, that he's perfectly fine with no trees, no fence, just simply approve staff conditions with the same number of lots, just don't put them 600 feet from my house. I don't understand how it is then that what we're proposing instead is to put buffering against his property and create those type of conditions that one would want to build $600,000 homes. I'm floored that council would want to deny a development of this type given what's being proposed. This doesn't devalue his property. This is certainly an amenities in the package with what's being put together that can only be an asset to the city of Chattanooga and to the East Brainerd area. I'm just trying to just understand, put my head around what I'm hearing and what's being done as it relates to council action. I understand the frustration as it relates to one individual who has really been the spearhead, the point of the spear throughout this process in trying to really, I think, overly state what the concerns are. I'd love to have somebody want to build a $600,000 home next to me. Come on, any and all. I'm taking anyone wants to build next to me. I think this is a great development. I would ask council to reconsider.
All right, thank you so much. All right, Councilman Ledford.
Thank you for, Mike, in response to that, the onus is on the community. They don't want this. They're willing to accept it. That's what I've heard. What comes down the pipe, I don't expect to see Mr. Berthal come before council complaining about anything, because that's exactly what they want. And if you go in there and you don't have to, that's the way these things, the PUD was but they don't want it. And they don't want it, and they want to just roll the dice. And he's stated that he wants to roll the dice, and that's on record, and that's, the entire neighborhood's going to have to stand with his decision. They did not want the PUD.
All right, thank you so much.
So, I mean, there might be other comments, but.
Yes, I have a comment, Councilman Burrs, followed by Councilman Smith.
This is interesting.
What?
Yeah, yeah, I'm thinking, for God's sake. What's the difference in what you can do by right now, and the PUD?
So I can still build on the other side of the floodplain.
Yeah,
I can still build essentially the same number of homes
Yeah.
through here.
but you don't have to do the fence or the trees or
We
anything.
don't have to do any of the items that we've considered. We'll probably just sit and wait to the council to make changes as it relates to the R1. And then we'll come in with a plan with no conditions and move forward based on that. I mean, I think we all recognize it's a matter of time. We were simply just trying to get ahead of the curve, but put conditions that ameliorated those situations. But if that's the answer that I'm told to take back to Ms. Teresa, then we'll wait and then we'll proceed on in that manner.
All right. All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Burrs. Councilman, Madam Vice Chair.
I see the
Give me-
applicant back
Right,
there.
give me just a
Raising his
second.
hand. Yes, ma'am.
Give me just a second. Madam Vice Chair Hill.
Mike, if you do decide to sit and wait for greater density allocations, I would ask that you think about building much smaller homes with ADUs. I think we need some real variety of housing in that area, and that could be a beautiful neighborhood.
We will
When the time comes, maybe look at 1,000 square foot homes with a 700 square foot ADU. That would be really tremendous, I think, for a lot of young families.
I think that that's certainly now on the table. Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you so much. And because we've already voted on this, Councilman Ledford, we'll take your last comment and then we'll move on through our agenda.
Madam Chair, the people have spoken and I've stood with them.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you so much.
All right, Madam Clerk, if you would take items L through P as a group, unless there's some objection. All right.
Item L, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to award contract number Y23002-201 to Tri-State Roofing Contractors LLC of Chattanooga, Tennessee, Washington Hills Community Center wall repair in the amount of $67,000 with a contingency in the amount of $6,700 for a total amount of $73,700. Item M, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to award contract number F23002-201 to Complete Demolition Services LLC of Carrollton, Georgia. Demolition Services, a fire department training tower in the amount of $151,280 with a contingency in the amount of $15,250 for a total amount of $166,530. Item N, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to renew professional services on-call blanket contract for resident project representative, RPR Services, contract number E20011-401 for year 4 of 5 to 12 consulting firms listed that submitted qualification in 5 different categories per the qualification package. 1, ASA Engineering Consulting, 2, Barge Design Solutions, 3, Concert Engineering LLC, 4, CTI Engineering Inc., 5, D. Martin and Partners LLC, 6, Franklin Associates Architects Inc., 7, Reagan Smith Associates Inc., 8, S&M Inc., 9, Southern Environmental Technologies Inc., 10, Thompson Engineering, 11, Volcar Inc., and 12, WSP USA Environment and Infrastructure Inc., formerly Wood Environment and Infrastructure Inc., formerly Wood Environment Infrastructure, for a total amount of $2 million. Item O, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to execute an agreement with CSX Transportation Inc. to provide preliminary engineering services for the T15024 Shaliford Road, Airport Road to Jersey Pike widening project for an amount not to exceed $35,010. Item P, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to authorize change order number 2 for design services provided by Volker Inc. for the Lakeside Safe Routes to School Project T14034-201, PN 120-861.00, in the amount of $18,270.
All right, council, you've heard the readings. It's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Madam Clerk, item Q.
A resolution authorizing the city finance officer to execute any documents necessary related to a loan agreement with the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, SRF 2023-478, for financing of a capital construction project number W19007, wet weather storage phase 6, supported by the consent decree for the Interceptor Sewer System, ISS, in the amount of $20 million.
Move to approve.
Okay, it's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Now, we've reached purchases. Yes, all right, Brooke.
Hello.
Got a lot of them today.
Good evening.
Good
We
evening.
have 14 purchases recommended for approval this evening. I will go as fast as possible.
Thank you.
First, from the Street Maintenance Division of Public Works, this is a new blanket contract for reinforced concrete pipe. This will be a 4-year agreement not to exceed $220,000 per year. The solicitation was advertised 6 times with no bids received. The 7th attempt produced 1 bid. The award will go to Foley Products Company as the best and only bid for the city of Chattanooga. Next, from the Street Maintenance Division of Public Works, these are 2 new blanket contracts for concrete. This will be a 4-year agreement not to exceed $400,000 per year. The solicitation was advertised 3 times with no bids received. The 4th attempt produced 2 bids. The awards will go to Ready Mix USA and Tennessee Concrete LLC as the best bid for the city of Chattanooga. Next, from the Fleet Maintenance Division of Public Works, this is a one-time purchase of 2 John Deere 5090E mowers with Alamo Brahma attachment for street cleaning in the amount of $195,000. This purchase will utilize Sourcewell contract number 070821-AGI. Also from Fleet Management Division of Public Works, this is a one-time purchase of 1 2023 International MV607 with brush hog, knuckle boom, and grapple truck for the Water Quality Division. This purchase in the amount of $188,906.68 will utilize Sourcewell contract number 060920-NVS. Next, from the Fleet Management Division of Public Works, this is a one-time purchase of 2 2025 Kenworth T380 with brush hog for Street Maintenance Division. This purchase in the amount of $490,766 will utilize the State of Tennessee contract number SWC 209-72310. Next, from Fleet Management Division of Public Works, this is a new blanket contract for police interceptor and special service vehicles. This will be a 4-year agreement not to exceed $3 million per year. Received 1 bid and re-advertised. No other bids were received. The award will go to Ford of Dalton as the best and only bid for the city of Chattanooga. Last one from Fleet Management Division of Public Works is an increase of $73,375 to a previous purchase with Ford of Dalton, which was ordered in April of 2022 for $175,975. The increase is due to the model year price adjustment. The new price total will be $249,350. Next, from Public Works, this is a new blanket contract for traffic street paint. This will be a 4-year agreement not to exceed $85,000 per year. The lowest bidder was not considered for the award due to past performance. The award will go to Ennis Flint as the best bid for the city of Chattanooga. Next, from wastewater, this is a 1-month contract extension with Source Technologies LLC for a liquid calcium nitrate to allow the department time to enter the needed requisition for recompetition. No additional funds are being added at this time. Also from wastewater, this is a new blanket contract for the supply and delivery of liquid oxygen. This will be a 4-year agreement not to exceed $325,000 per year. Bids were received from 1 vendor. The invitation was re-advertised and resulted in no additional bids. The award will go to Matheson Trigas. Next, from the Chattanooga Police Department, this is the purchase of 1 refurbished F6B system, including refurbished F6B robot vehicle for use by the Chattanooga Police Department Bomb Squad unit for the amount of $124,957.02. The vendor is Safeware Inc., and this purchase will utilize Omnia contract 4400008468. Next, from Human Resources, this is a new blanket contract for flexible spending accounts. This will be a 4-year agreement not to exceed $515,000 per year. The lowest bidder did not meet minimum requirements. The award recommendation will go to Total Administrative Services Corporation as the best bid for the city of Chattanooga. From the Department of Technology Services, this is a sole source 3-year blanket contract with Granicus. 3 products are being renewed in the Granicus blanket: GovQA for the Office of City Attorney, Boards and Commission Management, and Address Verification for STVR compliance. The total spend for the 3-year contract is $208,928.21, and the annual breakdowns are as follows. Year 1, $64,987.47. Year 2, $69,536.59. And year 3, $74,404.15. And last, from the Office of City Attorney, this is a sole source 2-year contract with LexisNexis. LexisNexis is the sole provider of Lexis Online Research Services, which provide up-to-date case law necessary for preparing documentation and legal arguments. The total spend for the 2-year contract is $53,332.80.
Okay, it's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes.
And we have one sole source purchase to report from wastewater. This is a purchase from Perkin-Elmer for laboratory instrument service agreements in the amount of $36,180.75. Perkin-Elmer is the only approved source for Perkin-Elmer repair parts and the only source authorized to provide service and installation for instrumentation manufactured and sold by Perkin-Elmer.
All right, thank you so much, Brooke. We come to committee reports. Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. Well, y'all done made this little section of the room real hot over here, so next week, Jermaine don't even try. We got a committee report, economic development, department report, and an update for every community.
All right, Councilwoman Knoll.
No report, praise God.
Councilwoman Byrd. Councilman Henderson.
No report.
Councilman Smith.
No report, Madam Chair.
Okay, Councilman Ledford.
No report, the plan is like it did me tonight.
All right, Councilman Hester.
No report.
Okay, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a report. The Affordable Housing Committee met today where we received a presentation on a market value analysis that will help the city council and the city help determine where and how Chattanooga can invest in affordable housing production and preservation for greatest impact. We will have a work session as a city council on October 3rd. It will be at 2:00. It will be in our conference room, and the public is welcome to attend. It will, 2:00.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Phil, you got announcements for us?
Just one item here. There's been a background investigation and zoning check here for Hilltop Bottle, Inc. That was the one that you had a request for a special exceptions permit. The applicant has not have any convictions that would bar him from operating that location, and this location complies with all restrictions under the zoning ordinance, and it's for 6032 Highway 153, and that has been approved by this body.
All right, thank you so much. Now comes time for people who wish to address the council. If you would like to address the council, please line up behind this podium. And Phil, could you read the rules?
I will. So at the end of every council business meeting, the chair will recognize members of the public who wish to address the council. Here's your rules. Each speaker wishing to address the council can only be recognized at the microphone up front provided for that purpose. Can't have more than 3 minutes to speak, and you can address the council only upon matters within their legislative and quasi-judicial authority, and not upon matters that are not under their authority or regulated by other governmental bodies or agencies. Can't use any vulgar or obscene language nor use the floor to personally attack or personally denigrate others. And address your comments to the council as a whole and not towards individual council members. And do not engage in disorderly conduct or disrupting a public meeting, which is prohibited under Tennessee law. Someone commits that offense if they substantially obstruct or interfere with a meeting by physical action or verbal utterance with the intent to prevent or disrupt a lawful meeting or gathering. Having stated all the rules, go right ahead, sir.
All right, thank you all for your time. My name is Joshua David Capellish. I'm an advocate for unsheltered citizens in Chattanooga and veterans across this great state of Tennessee. Service is defined as the action of helping or doing work for someone or something. We all serve a purpose on this earth, and for some it's to serve others, and for others it is to be served. Etiquette and service is the most delicate balance of discovering needs while simultaneously being expected and able to meet those needs, especially with respect to public service. A person who serves, known as a service person, is said to have a servant's heart or a heart of gold. Gold is considered a valuable rare earth mineral, and we affectionately describe things of value with the prefix of gold when making a point of special priority. A golden hour is a light of a sunrise or a sunset. Our golden years are those that some cherish most, a high reward for hard-working people. A golden age is a period of time that people lived in and experienced great prosperity, and some say that is right now for Chattanooga and Americans. If you're a modern-day miner searching for hearts of gold, where would you look? Where would you find them? Among who? What groups of people serve selflessly? Nurses, doctors, police people, firefighters, veterans, pastors, volunteers, teachers, and social workers. These are a few of the many titles Americans revere as noble and honorable, found right here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Yesterday, on September 11th, we Chattanoogans experienced a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to welcome home Captain Larry Taylor and honor the selfless sacrifices which earned him the Medal of Honor for his actions in Vietnam. Nearly 55 years later, he was recognized for his bravery, and we Americans are eternally grateful for his service. The parade and ceremony was the best and most memorable experiences of my life, and I want to thank everyone who participated and attended. It makes me so joyful to see a community of people show love and gratitude, producing hope for our future. I wish to share and spread that joy and love with all veterans in our community and country. However, there are still some times when we find homeless veterans in Chattanooga, and we need to be able to serve them with the same love and honor we do all veterans. And it is our duty to honor their sacrifice to our country through our services to them. And thank you to the City of Chattanooga for the partnership with the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office to better serve unsheltered citizens in Chattanooga. Last I was aware, there's about 57 homeless veterans. And if we call Captain Larry, he might show up with his Cobra helicopter and rescue him. So leadership is the rarest action to manifest from the ideation of mankind. When we step out into public, we bear witness to the standards of others and not our own. And when we act in good faith, we are right in our own mind. I believe it is our duty to exemplify fair and equal citizenry for a peaceful democracy centered on liberty, fairness, and justice according to high morals, principality, and mercy upon thy fellow human beings. I'll end with this. The best we can do
Right.
to prepare for tomorrow is to do our best today. Thank you.
That's your time. Okay, I don't,
Move to adjourn.
all right. Oh, hey,
My
listen.
apologies.
All right.
I am hot on the mic tonight.
It's okay, I was trying to give him a chance to do what he had to do. I didn't
You
want
go
to
ahead.
come up there. Thank you so very much. My name is Edward Green, that's Green with an E on the end, Jr. I'm a resident of District 9. Came in once before last month, I think, Mr. Attorney, to ask for bylaws and some guidance for our appeals and sign department. We're about to elect some officers in that particular department, and I think a lot of these, it's gonna be a lot of cliquish and clannish type of voting. And I don't know if everybody is qualified, since there are a lot of neos in that group who don't understand what our position is supposed to entail. Secondly, I'd like to know who I contact. There's a pothole at the intersection of Chamberlain and Wilcox. My car sustained damage to the mud flap on the driver's side of my vehicle. And secondly, my mother wants to know, she's 88, if there's a department that she can refer to that can assist her with trying to get windows for her home. If anybody can address those issues for me, I would greatly appreciate it. I have 1 minute and 20 seconds left for somebody to respond to me.
Thank you so much for giving us that time back. Jermaine's in the back, and he can just navigate you to all the people, Mr. Green.
I didn't hear you, what you said.
I'm sorry. Jermaine is right here. He about to get up right here. He can navigate you to all the
Thank you
all the
so very
resources.
much. I
Thank you, Mr.
appreciate
Green.
that.
All
Thank
right.
you.
See no one else wishing to address the council?